If you're a parent in Florida, chances are you've already thought about who you would want to raise your children if you were not able to. That question alone tells me something important. You're thoughtful, you're responsible, and you care deeply about doing right by your children. What most parents don't realize is that choosing guardians is not just a personal decision, it's also a structural one. And that distinction matters more than people expect. I often meet parents who say, "We've named guardians, so that part is handled." And again, these are not careless families. They've had the hard conversations. They've made intentional choices. But when we slow things down, what usually comes up is a bigger question. Not who they chose, but how that choice is actually supported legally. And this is where most parents realize they've been thinking about guardianship as a choice, not a structure. This is what I call the naming fallacy. Naming people feels like planning, but without a framework, it does not actually support them. Here's the key insight that most parents have never been shown. Choosing a guardian is only one part of a much larger framework. Guardianship works best when it's supported by a structure that answers questions. Questions like, who has the authority right away? How are decisions made without delay? Is that authority temporary or plenary? And how does everything work together if circumstances change? Without that framework, even well-chosen guardians can end up facing confusion and court involvement that they never expected. This is also why guardianship planning is not something that most families want to experiment with or piece together on their own. Not because parents are not capable, but because once these decisions are tested, there's no opportunity to fix any gaps or clarify intent. The stakes are simply too high, and the consequences are not reversible because the parent who could fix it won't be here to do that. That's why thoughtful parents usually want a structure that works correctly the first time. This comes up even more often in blended families, or when parents assume that everyone will just figure it out because they all get along. And they all get along now. We don't know what will happen in the future. Most families don't anticipate conflict, but planning is not about predicting problems. It's about creating clarity so that problems don't arise in the first place. That shift in thinking is when parents usually feel a sense of relief. So if you've named guardians but still feel unsure, that doesn't mean that you missed something. It usually just means that you're ready to move from naming people to building a framework that actually supports them. This is usually the moment where families realize that it's worth slowing down and making sure that everything actually works the way that they intend it to work. If this conversation is resonating with you, I walk through this in much more detail in my upcoming live webinar. We'll talk about how Florida families think through guardianship as part of a broader planning strategy, not just a single decision. If you're the kind of parent who wants guardianship handled with clarity and structure, I cover this in detail in my upcoming live webinar. You can register on my website at www.familywealthlaw.net/webinar. It's designed to give parents clarity and context before they decide what makes sense for their family.